Okay, recording has started. Okay, I need a minute. I'm like the worst. Ooh. Okay, here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Mindset Matters, the podcast where we explore themes of resilience, presence, and gratitude, and where we choose to live with purpose and grow with intention. My name is Vic, your host, and I'm very grateful that you're here. And next up on my list of gratitude, I'm very grateful and excited to introduce you today to my dear friend Magnus Rashid, who I was fortunate enough to connect with this past summer. Magnus is many things, some of which include travel enthusiast, digital nomad, high energy, good vibes friend, and overall wellness advocate. So Magnus and I got along from the jump, and we enjoy hiking together, having deep chats about life, mindset, what it means to live a meaningful life. So Magnus, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you for having me, Vic. What an intro. So kind. You don't normally say such nice things to me.
Yeah, Magnus and I sometimes get into it with each other. But
Yeah,
I
that's why
have
it's
good
getting
things to
nickname.
say. This is why we hang out, because I do enjoy your company, and I do enjoy your thoughts, and I'm excited to get into today. So I'd honestly love to start with your personal connection to like mindset and wellness, because that's something that we connected on. So when did mindfulness become an important part of your life, and like what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question because this was one of the only questions that you prepped me with. So I think I would say from like maybe 10 or 11 years old, mindfulness has been something that has been central to my thoughts. As you mentioned, I'm a high energy person. Though as high energy as I am, I haven't had trouble sitting still. It's actually a very good little student. But when I was 10 years old, my parents started taking me to do Bikram's hot yoga. And if anyone's ever done Bikrams, there's a lot of breathing in there. It's 90 minutes. If you don't breathe, you will feel like you're dying. So I would say that was my first kind of introduction to that. And then throughout high school, I was always one of those people that would attend like the random little like seminars that they would have about like journaling or like self-improvement on pro D days and stuff. So I would say, yeah, my journey started quite early, but yoga was definitely like my first introduction to mindfulness.
Okay, very interesting. I don't think I even knew that about you. Do you still practice yoga today a little bit?
Yeah, every single week.
Okay, amazing. I've been recently getting back into hot yoga, and yeah, that's been a nice staple to have. Like at least once a week, twice if I'm feeling good. But yeah, definitely nice mental and physical release for sure. So 10 years old, you started doing yoga. You're interested in this stuff. What kind of maybe books have you read that are like key staples that you always go back to or like reference about mindset or mindfulness
About mindset or mindfulness.
or wellness in
Um,
general, I guess?
the subtle art of not giving an F is one
Mm,
that I really enjoy. I enjoy Mark Manson a lot.
okay.
Um, the reason why I love that book because the title is so the opposite of what the book is actually about.
Mm,
And it's that we all care, or at least my takeaways from the book, is that it's all about we all have things that we care about, and we have to care. Like I think it's a human feeling to have thoughts, to have feelings, to care. But if you don't define it, that the world or people around you or society will define those things for you. But if you're intentional in
mm,
that, then you can define it for yourself and really put energy into the things that you care about. So that's one book that really resonates with me a lot. Grit by Angela Duckworth is one I think about a lot. Really
mm.
like that word, grit. I think it's something I possess quite a lot of. I'm always trying to find things to make myself grittier. So those are two, and one that's not necessarily mindful, but it's like uh, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale
Mm.
Carnegie. I think it's such an amazing read because the examples are about like milkmen and random careers that like don't even exist anymore,
Mm.
but the takeaways still are so prevalent in today's society, even though those jobs might exist, the world might be different. They're like fundamental human truths. And so I actually read that book like probably every 2 years. It's always a great read.
Okay, that's super interesting. I've actually heard mixed reviews on this one, The Win
Okay.
Friends and Influence People. I haven't read it, but I've heard that maybe like the downside of winning friends and influencing people is that it gives this idea that you should like change yourself in order to be able to be friends with people in different spaces. Would you say it has anything to do with that? Again, I haven't read it, so I don't, this is not my opinion. But versus, I guess, the opposite, which would be like, I'm going to be true to myself no matter what, and I don't care if you like me because I will always be able to find my people who I like and like me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I That's not how I take it. I understand how people could take it that way. Like one of the chapters that resonates me with always is like why is remembering names so important?
Mm.
And how many people do you meet and they go, "Oh, I'm terrible with names." And like let's get real. Like that's just lack of effort. Like remembering names is not that hard. So to me, it's like why are names important? Names are important to us. We all like use our like it's who we are. It's a part of our personality. It's a part of our identity. And so if we choose not to remember other people's names and we're like choosing to maybe not give them the importance that they want. And
Mm.
so I can see where people are coming from with that, but that's not how I take it. I think what it's doing is putting you in the perspective of other people, which I think in general to make friends, to influence people is how it works. If you only approach
Mm.
it from your perspective, I don't think realistically you're a very good friend or you're really going to influence people very well or people are really going to like you. That doesn't mean that you need to change your opinions, but you can think about how you express them to them. You can think about the tone you use, the approach you take, which it depends on your goals. If your goal is just to say exactly what's on your mind and not tailor yourself at all, that's totally fine. But if your goal is actually to make people understand your opinion, if you change the way you approach it, they actually might be more willing to like take it in. So,
Mm. Okay, I do like that. Yeah, because even in situations of conflict or like disagreeing opinions, if you go at it aggressively, like I'm right, you're wrong, then you're never going to be able to connect with anyone who's different than you. And I think being able to connect with people who are different is also an important skill to have. Okay,
absolutely.
I love that. I would love to know. You have recently become kind of this digital nomad, and you were traveling for quite a bit of the beginning of this year, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
And I'd love to know how being kind of a digital nomad, traveling while working, maybe changed your approach to wellness.
Mm, yeah, that's a very good question. So I would say I've had mixed results in my success on this on this side of things. But what I really tried to approach is like I'm a big morning routine person. Always have been, probably have been ever since I entered the professional workforce. I guess like 8 or 9 years ago. I thought it was really important to like set yourself up for success. Take the time before you get to work. At school, it wasn't so important to me. More flexibility, things like that. But at work, you're judged from the moment you kind of walk in the door. And if you aren't your bubbly self, and with such a big personality that I am judged maybe more harshly when I don't bring energy because I have so much of it that even if I'm just like a regular Joe Schmo, people are like, Magnus is down today. And I'm like, no, I'm 30% more energetic than you today. I'm just not like my regular bouncy self. So I was really aware of that. I got a lot of feedback early in my career that like, hey, you need to show up in that way consistently because your energy is always so high, it's going to feel differently. So I started establishing a morning routine a long time ago. And in response to the travel, what I started to do was think of like, how do I take that and like be able to carry it with me anywhere? How do I structure it that like it doesn't matter if I'm in Guatemala, if I'm in Costa Rica, if I'm in Colombia? How do I make sure that I do the same things? And then on the flip side, what do I need from like a space perspective to make sure I can still do that? Because to me, it's part of both. It's like I can bring stuff to the table, but I also have to like create their space around me.
Okay, I love that. Yeah, because I was going to talk to you about routine because I know for me, when I travel, it's like part of the joy of travel is like experiencing new things. And for me, a big joy is like coming home and being like, yes, I get to get back into my routine because I thrive on routine. But it's like when you're traveling for several months on end, I assume it can be more challenging to kind of keep those routines. So I do like the approach of keeping the morning consistent because I think when we start our day, like how you start your day kind of sets the precedent for the whole day ahead. Does it feel good to be back because you've kind of been settled at home for a long period of time after traveling? Have you felt like you've noticed positive things about being more consistent in other ways? Do you miss the traveling? Are you ready to get back out there? Like, how are you kind of feeling about it?
I definitely feel that it was necessary because when you are constantly doing, and like I think I was growing a lot, but when you don't pause, you don't have the opportunity to like digest that growth or like actually like put it into your body. It's just like there. And so I didn't feel like when I first came home, I like digested any of it. It was just like I've gone on all these great experiences. I know I've grown, but I can't articulate it. I wasn't even like positive talking about the experience, even though in those moments it was very positive. I just knew that I needed like the space for it to like go through my body and like make its way into my cells and into my psyche and subconscious. So I think it was necessary. And it wasn't until I feel like it was almost like one to one. Basically, traveled for 6 months and now I've been home for a little more than that. But it wasn't until I'd say like a month ago that I was like, oh, wow, I can really feel that I've fully digested these experiences. I fully processed them all. They're all, I can like say what I liked and didn't like clear, concise language. So I definitely am happy that I did that, but I am ready to go again because I do feel like I've like digested it all and been able to
Mm.
process it.
Okay, a couple things I loved. Love that you talked about how like that self-reflection period can take time. This is a perfect example of that. Like I think sometimes we think something happens and you're like, "Okay, let me reflect on it." And you just like think that it has to be this instantaneous thing. And I feel like I sometimes have that approach of like something big will happen. As you know, last month was kind of challenging for me and I was reading a lot and feeling like I needed to like learn all these things to help me get out of the mental headspace I was in. But it's like also take a breath and like come back to being present and like let yourself, like you said in your words, like digest these experiences, like positive or negative, right? Because it's through that kind of centering yourself that I think you allow things to settle, you allow solutions to find you. And I like that you said, yeah, now that I've been settled and I feel like I've digested it, I am ready to go back out and kind of do it again. So I love that. Is there one thing, if you had to say one thing that you would change or do differently when you're ready to get back out there, what would that look like?
I think it's about, and I'm getting better and better at this, it's like giving yourself the space to change your mind. Like there is a fine line between creating a plan of going and traveling and giving yourself the like time and space to change your mind. And like the more confidence you have navigating those spaces, the easier it is to do. And like it's way easier when you're traveling for long periods of time than it is for like a week. Go on a week trip, like I get why you'd be like regimented. But if you're doing something for weeks or months, like you have flexibility and you don't need to like stake yourself down. And when I first started traveling, I was very regimented, very, I'm going to be here, I'm going to be here, I'm going to be here. But one of my favorite parts of traveling is the people. You don't know the people. You don't know who you're going to meet. You know, might meet someone lovely and they're going in a different direction and you want to take that path with them. And if you've booked everything, if you're financially committed, it's harder to make those choices. So I like creating bookends, but then like letting and like doing research, but letting a lot of that other stuff just flow as it may. It can result in some bad situations, but I think on the most part, it's like really positive, And even on my upcoming trip, I booked everything as refundable. And like 5 days later, found out a woman that I met is going to be there at the same time. And now I totally changed my entire itinerary so that we can hang out for like 10 of the days. So had I taken my old approach and cemented myself in, I would have been kicking myself and been like, we're going to be in the same country, but you're financially committed to this. And you're going to have to convince her to come and do this experience. So I think the opportunity to change your mind, and it also really helps with the anxiety of going. I think no matter how much you travel, the anxiety of going, if you're less financially committed, you can always just be like, I just got to change my flight. I can come home. And I think that's personally helpful because no matter how much I travel, we all get used to our routine. And we have
Yeah,
that sense of loss. So
definitely. And I think people can even get, like, you have anxiety about travel so you book everything so that it feels perfect, but nothing ever turns out perfectly. So almost creating gaps or that flexibility initially can actually alleviate the anxiousness in the long term. Because I know some people are like, I need everything booked. But again, then you feel like it's a loss if it doesn't work out, or the weather is bad, or you meet someone and you want to do something different. So I think that's a good approach. And even just leaving room to change your mind, I think, is a good life kind of mantra as well. Like, sometimes things change on the fly and we can just kind of roll with it a little bit.
yeah, no, absolutely. I think you don't know how you're going to feel, let alone tomorrow, let alone 2 weeks, let alone a month. So it's that fine line of committing to yourself, but also giving yourself that space, that opportunity to change.
Love it. Okay, so a while back, I told Magnus about a book that I read called Essentialism by Greg McKeown. I have talked about this on the pod before. So Magnus read the book and you seem to really like it. I think you mentioned right away, like, oh, I've never taken so many notes from a book. So for anyone who hasn't seen my other episodes about essentialism, can you maybe give your perspective or like mini summary of what essentialism is?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I were to describe it, he obviously has a lot of really great quotes, but it's ultimately about your direction of energy and limiting the amount of places that you direct that energy can give you the opportunity to create a tremendous amount of growth in those areas. And that actually by doing less, you do more because you do fewer things better. And, even I think it's like the cover of the book, but it's also within the book, draws like a little graph or a little image that's a circle with arrows coming off of it. And if you have like 10 arrows going off 1 inch, but you take that same amount, those 10 inches, and you direct it off in one or two directions, you get so much farther away from the circle. You get 10 inches, or if you're going in two directions, 5 inches. So you're able to push yourself so much further. And I think it's a really great, like, analogy for life and so many things. We all try to do it all, but sometimes when you focus, you narrow that focus, you're able to really make tremendous amount of impacts in a few respects.
Mm-hmm. That was a great summary. I love that. So I took a little screenshot I'm going to kind of look at of kind of the non-essentialist versus the essentialist approach, just to give people a better idea of like, what does it mean to be an essentialist in terms of something that you might think, do, or get, versus a non-essentialist, which is maybe putting your energy everywhere, feeling like you have to be everywhere. So the non-essentialist thinks I have to, or it's all important, or they ask the question, how can I fit everything in? Whereas the essentialist might say, or think, sorry, I choose to. They think about only the few things that matter. And they think, what are the trade-offs? And I think this idea of trade-offs is a big one of, it's impossible for everyone to have everything. And I do think social media kind of gives this false sense of people seem to always have it all. Or we see people with some things and we see other people with other things. And we kind of create this maybe false image in our head of what a successful life maybe looks like. So I do like this idea of trade-offs of like, okay, what is actually important to me? And so going back to the non-essentialist, things that they do. They might react to what's most pressing. So if something comes up, they're like flinging into action and just doing the thing that needs to be done or that they think needs to be done. And they say yes to people without thinking. And I used to struggle with this. Actually, something I'm still working on is like sometimes I'll say yes to things without reflecting like, wait, do I actually want to do this thing, or is this important to me where I'm at in my life right now? Whereas the essentialist is more methodical, right? They'll pause to discern what really matters, and they say no to everything except the essential. And this is kind of this big point that we're going to get into today. But I guess before we kind of get into our little debate, because there's a quote that's in the book from someone else we're going to get into that Magnus and I have differing opinions on. But I guess before we get into that, what concepts from the book did you find most relevant to you? Or like, what did you highlight most that you kind of feel like you've been coming back to since reading the book?
You don't have to do it all. I think that's one of the biggest ones. I think at that point, you're like, I was struggling with many things that were on my, oh, you should be doing these things list. And I think reading that book gave me the, oh, no, like, okay, yeah, they're important to you for future possibility, but like you can push those to the future and you're choosing to focus on these other things and you can articulate why. I also think that aspect of choice, I think like either we're choosing to or we get to or we have the opportunity to is so much more powerful than like I have to. One is so like you're chained to something. It's not, there's no agency within it, but I do believe we have more agency. Like we can't change everything about ourselves, but we can choose how we approach these actions. So I would say it's the forgiveness, the ability to let go of certain things, and then that just a language of approach to my daily actions would be the two largest takeaways.
Okay, I love that. Yeah, I wrote down for me like that letting go of the feeling of needing to do everything, be everywhere, say yes to everyone, which is like those shoulds, right? Like that you mentioned. And I think what I really liked is the approach of like asking the right questions to help you narrow your focus, because part of the kind of process of becoming an essentialist is like, well, yeah, there is some exploration that needs to happen of like, what am I deeply inspired by? What am I good at? What need in the world exists that I can help with, right? And kind of becoming super focused on that particular thing. So that really helped me because I like asking those deep questions and like thinking about, you know, where is my highest contribution, right? That's kind of what it is. Do less, but do it better. So there is a part in the book where the quote comes up, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And this quote is actually from Derek Sivers, and he has done some TED Talks. And from his website, I'm going to quote this, but it says, by saying no to almost everything, you leave space and time in your life to throw yourself completely into a few things or the few things that matter most. So if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. And where this exists in the book of Essentialism, it's a chapter called The Power of Extreme Criteria. And it's really being able to focus on what is most important to you. And this idea that, you know, maybe 20% of our efforts produce 80% of our results in life, and having extreme criteria of what's important to you. So, Magnus, what is your first impression? Because when I read this, loved it. And I'll get into maybe my impression of the idea after you explain yours. And then we're going to debate a little bit some pros and cons because we kind of have differing views. But if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. What are your thoughts?
It feels to me like that approach to life would keep you in a comfort zone. And I believe, and I went to a course this week where we talked about goal setting, and there was 4 aspects of goal setting, and it was the comfort zone, the high dive, the deep end, and the pause. And I really see this idea of, man, maybe it's just the way I'm interpreting the quote, but the way that a lot of people could take this is that if you don't contextualize that, you're only going to stay in that comfort zone ever. You're only going to do things that are really comfortable, that feel great, that are positive. You're never going to climb and scale up that high dive and jump into the deep end and really make yourself uncomfortable and do things that are difficult. I would relate it to something that I love to do in my personal life, which is cold plunge, hot to cold. I think that it's got to be slightly psychotic, which I kind of am, to approach the cold with a hell yes. To be like, I'm so excited for this. And even myself, even though I've done it for years now, there's still days where I'm like, I really don't want to get in this, whether it's a cold shower or going to an actual physical space or going in the ocean. I don't want to do this at all. I don't want to experience this. I don't want to be uncomfortable in my body. I don't want to feel cold. Yet, when I take that plunge, when I do it, I come out feeling so alive. And I have that nice pause after where I feel so good and my body feels phenomenal and I sleep well. And I think you can extrapolate that to a lot of things in life where there's the initial trepidation where it's not an immediate yes, but, and I would say, though, I would contextualize this with that it still needs to be in the parameters of your goals and of your values. You shouldn't just be saying yes just to say yes. But I think that this quote could veer into the realm of just leaning into things that are comfortable.
Okay.
And that if you don't broaden your horizons and contextualize it within your goals and within your values, that it can veer into a position where you just do the same things, you hang out with the same people, you complete the same actions, and you just exist in this nice little bubble where no growth happens. And I think when you're not growing, you're regressing.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. But I also feel like someone who's like, hell yes, like anything in your comfort zone, does that give you a hell yes? Like I almost think everything that feel like when I think of it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Like to me, hell yes is like giving me this like invigorated feeling of like, yeah, I should do that. Or like, yes, this is exciting. So I feel like everything that's within my comfort zone already isn't even that exciting because I am in my comfort zone. And like I'm someone who loves to expand my comfort zone. So I don't think like I view this quote as like relating to the comfort zone as much. I get what you're saying about sometimes in the moment we don't want to do things and like maybe it goes with your underlying value of like what you want and your goals, and that's going to push you to say hell yes. When I first read it, I loved it because again, it was like for me, I'm like, oh, hell yes, like I want to chase that feeling of hell yes, this is where my energy should go. And to me, that's out of my comfort zone already because it's things that are exciting. And as someone who also has struggled with like setting boundaries sometimes, and someone who's very intentional and goal oriented, this idea really spoke to me of like, if it's not a hell yes, then I can set a boundary by saying no. And that is like a helpful thing for me. And so it's like, okay, if I'm thinking about something that I could do, if I really don't want to do something, if I'm really 50-50, or if I think something could be fun, but like maybe it will veer me off the path of my goals, like staying out super late if I have an early morning, like then to me that's like, this isn't a hell yes, maybe I should say no. And I feel like this is helpful for people who are very goal oriented towards a specific thing because it helps kind of guide you to stay on your path, which maybe isn't always good because we do need flexibility and I think trying new things is good, but I do think like it helps you get rid of like the meh so things in your life and be like, hell yes, this is my path, this is what I'm doing. I can say no easily to the things that don't align with that.
So I can see it for actions you already do, for things you are already like housekeeping your life, whether this is people in your life or activities in your life. You've already experienced them. You have some learned knowledge. We all have those people in our lives where it's like lukewarm. I can see it towards that, where like this is a way of weeding out those things because you have the lived experience. Where I think I struggle with this quote a lot more is on the unknown.
Mm.
Is choosing to do something that scares you, that is not within your learned experience, whether that's speaking in front of people or like I think you kind of have to be nuts to like be fully confident about jumping out of a plane for the first time or going bungee jumping or these activities that are like really fun and exciting once you do them. But I think that hell yes, it's like really challenging to get there unless you're
Mm.
like really motivated to do it. And I still think those actions are worthwhile. Or going to an event where you don't know anyone. I think it's challenging for that to be a hell yes because you can't step back and you have no lived experience. I think for things that you know, people you know, spaces you know, it can be, to your point, very helpful at weeding those things out and being like, I know what this experience is like if I go out with these
Mm.
people. You know what? I know what I'm going to, in general, get, and that's not where I'm looking to put my energy. But the challenge I have to the quote is it does feel like it could limit you from expanding your horizons. Because how
Mm.
is it supposed to be a hell yes when you're not even like aware of the situation, aware of everything? But I
Okay.
don't disagree about it being useful in certain regards. But as you speak, I'm like, I get it for things you know, but what about what you don't
Yeah, and that makes me think of like, should you always follow your gut instincts? Because a lot of people's gut reaction might be a no because you brought up fear. Like things that scare you don't it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but it does mean you might not be a hell yes right away. And like I guess I can say I agree with that from my experience doing like my boxing match that I did. Like my gut reaction, or not even my gut, but like my first reaction was like, no, I could never get in a ring and fight someone. Like that's insane. But the more I sat with it and I gave myself a day to think about it, I kind of realized like, wait, this would be really cool. And it does scare me. And like it did become a hell yes. So I think for me, it became a hell yes because I was like, okay, I think I want this experience. I guess I'll go for it. Then for me, it's like it should be a hell yes because I want to do it. And I can kind of turn it into a hell yes. But I think it's true that initially your first initial reaction to something, especially if it's something new and scary, it can be fear based, but yeah, it doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't do the thing.
yeah, I mean, you have to challenge yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
that's where I just fall short on the quote and on
Mm.
its value. Is like, I think without the context that you read about the other pieces, the quote lacks like context of like,
Okay.
it's not really about like, it's kind of like back to like the subtle art. It's like actually not about not caring about anything. And it's not about actually only saying yes to things that make you feel good. It's about like to a
Mm.
higher vision of like what is your actual focus and does this align to that focus.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with that sentiment, but I think the quote itself and the way a lot of people use it in popular culture, like towards dating and things like that, it's a little bit ridiculous. It's like, well, no, like how are you going to have a hell yes to this random person that just came up to you on the street? Like, are you trying to find a person? Okay, well then like maybe you could give them that opportunity. Like, are you willing and open? Like, okay,
Mm.
maybe there's reasons. And I think if it's like a huge hell no, like you should listen to your gut. But to your point, like your gut can say so many things to you. It's more nuanced than just like if you're
Yeah.
feeling like fear of your life or this person is sketchy, like you should listen to those things. But if it's like a tingly or like I don't know how I feel about this, like I don't know, some of those feelings I think we can misread. Like I think we
Mm.
have an attunement to our bodies that's challenging to get to in our daily lives. And that fear could be because we're self-sabotaging because we know like in part of our bodies that like if it's about dating that this person could be a great match and we're like slightly scared of that, or could be so many other things.
Mm-hmm.
So, rambling slightly here, but the quote has value in context, but removing it from the context, I kind of hate it. But if
Okay.
you layer the confidence or the
I
context
hate
back
it. It's a
on,
hell no from me.
then it's valuable. But I
Yeah.
just think like it has to tie back to vision and values for me.
Yeah. So when I think about this too, I was like, okay, I think if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. Helps you focus on what is most important. But yes, I agree with you where like you have to know what that goal is or what that context is because, you know, let's take an example of like you're training for a marathon. Okay, in order to train and successfully run your marathon, you have to run. Like if you wake up one day and you have a 10K run planned, did you know you have to run
Thanks, Debs.
to be able to do your marathon? Okay, but let's say you wake up, you've got a 10K planned as part of your training, and you're just like, OMFG, I do not want to do this today. In that moment, you're not a hell yes, but it's like your deeper hell yes is that you want to run the marathon. So I feel like the deeper hell yes of I want to do this marathon and get my best time ever overrides the in the moment feeling of I don't feel like running today.
It's so dependent upon mood. It's dependent upon what you ate. It's dependent upon how much sleep you had. It's dependent upon how the person asks you. There's just way too many factors. Like you could
Yeah.
ask me in so many. It depends who's asking me. But if you just pull it back and you have more 10,000 foot view and you can contextualize it for yourself, then that's when I can see this becoming powerful.
Well, it's also like I saw the quote in the context of the book and I really love the book. So that's also influencing my ability to contextualize the quote and like understand how it can relate to my life in a meaningful and like important way, I guess. And I think one thing that you mentioned that made me think of like hindsight bias. Okay, so for example, Magnus took me to a party a few weeks back and we went for dinner. And I was like really so about this party. I didn't know if I wanted to. I was very, and we literally talked about it. Magnus is like, oh, this is perfect material for my arguments against the quote because I was not in a hell yes mood. Okay, let's put it that way. So I was like, not sure, whatever. And so I decided to go to the party and I'm like, you know what? I'm not drinking tonight. So I'm going to drive home. I can leave whenever. If I don't have fun, I can go home. And like, that to me is worth that like risk of it's really not a big deal if I have to drive a little bit further to get home. Like, you know? So in context, okay, I wasn't a hell yes, but I kind of hyped myself up and I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe I'll meet some fun people. And what ended up happening was, yes, I did meet some fun people. I'm actually having dinner tonight with a girl that I met at this party. So it's like I can look, yeah, making friends. So it's like my deeper hell yes is like, I don't really feel like this, but a deeper hell yes, and maybe like the way we should be in kind of looking at this quote is I want to expand my social circle because I just moved somewhere new. So I kind of had to push myself to be like, okay, even though I don't feel like this is a hell yes in the moment, my deeper hell yes is like I do value new experiences. I do value meeting new people. So I think I agree with your point of like you have to know the context within your own life and like knowing your values, knowing what's more important to you on a deeper level. And that helps maybe push you out of your comfort zone, kind of like you mentioned at the beginning. But it's like, let's look at it from the other way. What if I went to this party and it was terrible and I didn't meet anyone and it was like super packed and hot and annoyed and I just felt like, why did I come here? Like both experiences could have existed. And it's like in hindsight bias, you tell yourself, oh, I should have known I wasn't feeling hell yes. I shouldn't have gone to the party. But again, you don't know until you do it, right?
Totally. I think though, if one of your goals is to build community, to make friends, you have to get reps in. Like you have to go do these things and recognize if I go to 10 parties, maybe only 4 of them are good. If I want to go and date and find my partner, like you're going to have to go on some bad dates. Like the idea that like everything is going to be perfect is like just a fallacy. It's not going to work. You're just going to end up sitting in your bedroom doing nothing. And that's where I say, I think it's important to contextualize it back to your goals. And if it is within the line of your goals, and lean in and not ever experience. And there will be experiences that surprise you. But if it's not, if it doesn't align to you, if going out and drinking 16 beers with your friends is totally against everything you're trying to do, then you can say no to those experiences.
Yeah.
Give yourself the permission to say, no, this doesn't align to what I'm trying to achieve in these moments. And maybe in 2 months that totally does align. That is what you're trying to do. You're trying to give yourself the freedom to socialize to the fullest extent or whatever it may be. It's never going to be the same in each and given moment. But I think you need anchor points in order to tie back these experiences to. And that's where a lot of people lack that framework to do it. And that's why I was so ardent against this quote. But I guess it's self-selective, because if you're reading this book, maybe you are more one of those people. I was just putting in the context of everyone, and in popular culture, it seems to be used in this way of oh, if you don't feel amazing about this, just say no. That's ridiculous. You won't get anywhere in life. You won't have any growth. You won't experience any aspects of discomfort. And even back to this party example, experiences that are negative are greater learning experiences than experiences that are positive. It's just, you learn way more from things that don't go well, Yeah. I recently spoke at a wedding, and I had many good experiences at weddings, and I got too drunk. And I apologize, Jeremy, if you listen. I got too drunk. Sorry, Claire. And it was not my best speech. And I was not good. But now I've reflected upon that. I'm you know what? I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again. Because I had a bunch of really positive, whether it was MC or flower boy or just different things at weddings, where I did really well. But they had all gone so swimmingly that I think it was positive in some respects that I had this this speed bump, and now next time I'll be more aware that I won't have that ninth glass of wine before I speak, and that I will be more and remember my rules to myself. So I think this aspect, this quote, can have value when you contextualize it, when you can take a step back, but you do have to be willing to lean in, I think, to some bad experiences, to kiss some frogs to find your Prince Charming. There's so many analogies we can use, because you need to build up that repetitiveness, that grit and determination. But also you can use I think if wielded negatively, it's just going to keep you in this comfort zone.
I like what you said about contextualizing the quote, understanding your own values and goals. And I think what's really great about doing quarterly goal setting, for example, is you can decide what areas of your life are most important to you right now. And in that way, that allows you to kind of build your priorities around that. And then you can decide, well, what are my hell yeses in the current context of my life? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely need to, have to be checking in on your goals and giving yourself the capabilities of changing and altering those. Goals are not set it and forget it. They're set it and continually adjust, continue refine your metrics, continually re-engage with them. They're not a book that you read once and put down. It's it's exercise. It's something you need to constantly be maintaining, in my opinion. So I think, yeah, you definitely, if you're reassessing, there's lots of things that you can do that should be, yeah, I'm not sure I ever think hell yes towards things that are scary necessarily. So I think maybe it's a little bit maybe I would reframe the quote if it's aligned to your goals, then hell yes, do
if
those
it's
things.
not a hell yes, in brackets, except if it's a hell yes to your major goals and you're pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, then it's a no.
Yeah, just because I just struggle with this, and maybe this is just my interpretation of life. It's just scary things are very rarely hell yes. Things that are challenging are very rarely hell yes.
Fair.
going to a party you don't really want to go to, or going to a community or professional event. Like if you're trying to network, it's I consider myself a great networker. It's really uncomfortable going to these network events and like walking up to, you know, random lady and saying hello, how's it going, like nice to meet you. It's
Mm-hmm.
more uncomfortable. There's an aspect of trepidation, of fear to get over. And so I just think like, you do have to do some things for yourself that are not going to be. But to your point, if the goal is a hell yes and it's continually a hell yes, then I think that's where it comes back to. Maybe not the individual actions, but if the goal continuously is actually on your plate as a hell yes,
Mm-hmm.
then like you're going to need to do some uncomfortable things and things that
Totally.
challenge you.
Okay. Yeah. I feel that. You speak to me, Magnus. Okay, before we wrap up, I want to know some rapid fire questions. So these are quick. These
Okay.
are first thing that comes to mind. Whatever you want to say. What are you most excited about right now?
I'm most excited about achieving my personal goals in the holiday season, getting to spend time with my family.
Love it. Is the goal
Oh,
spend time with family
oh
or
no.
goals and spend time with family?
Goals and spend time with family. And I
Cool.
think one of the goals is to approach essentialism and
Mm,
to be okay with saying no to things that don't align to it,
love
and to
it.
put myself in situations that do that, and to give myself the self love and opportunity to say no, and to know that like I can't do
Mm,
it all, that there is a trade off. Yeah. So.
love it. I think that's especially important like heading into holiday season because it tends to be a crazy time with a lot of opportunities for crazy fun, crazy sometimes fun things, but sometimes we just can't do it all. Okay, next rapid fire. What is at the top of your travel bucket list at the moment?
I'm going to El Salvador in a few weeks, but I wouldn't say it's top. It's just like where I'm going next because of these. I should just pick one place. I would probably say the Galapagos Islands. I would really like to go to those outside of Ecuador, or like in Ecuador, but
Mm,
like an island of Ecuador.
cool.
That's really high. Or going and visiting like ancestral homeland and going to India would be lovely as well.
Mm, okay. And what are you most looking forward to for the start of a new year, 2025?
Talking to people about their goals, because it's like the only time outside of friends like yourself maybe where like you get that opportunity where it's like the social
Norm?
like look, yeah, it's there, and it's something I personally love like just doing all the time. And I like helping and supporting my friends in their goals, and I think
Mm.
it's like a nice opportunity where it's like really socially acceptable and people aren't like just shut up, like we don't want to talk about goals, like let's just watch a hockey game.
Meanwhile,
um
every conversation Magnus and I have is like somewhere related to goals. Okay, maybe not every conversation, but a big
the vast
majority.
majority.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so
cool.
I'm really excited for that. And I also think like naturally for me, and I know it's not for everyone, like I gain a lot of momentum of positive energy on the turning of the year. I gain it naturally
Mm,
after my birthday, at the start of the new year. I feel like I can like really take 30 days, and like I think I could challenge myself to do whatever it may be, and for 30 days in January I can probably get it done like very
okay.
effectively. So I really like that time because December is a tough month. It's tough with
Yeah.
family commitments, with the opportunity to drink, the opportunity to eat gluttonous food, but like you can really recommit. And there's honestly like, what is positive about January besides skiing? And you can still ski and do a lot of other things. So
Cool. I love that. Yeah, I'm also a very January, let's go, New Year kind of person. But I do think sometimes it's hard with like the dead of winter to like find the motivation, but I do think turning of the year helps me as well. Um So I guess my last question would be, is there anything else that you want the world of Mindset Matters to know about Magnus Rashid
Oh, about me? I was
or
gonna say
about
like,
life?
comment. I was gonna say
About
like, comment, subscribe. Um,
Don't forget to
um,
subscribe, guys. Like it if you want Magnus back.
the thing that I would say is if you are on a journey, like you are trying to figure something out, start with one small thing that you can do every day that like helps you towards your goal. I think most people's biggest problem is they try to do too much too quickly. And there's like that really lovely like 1% better graph that
Mm.
like if you get 1% better a day and like something like meditation, and they talked about this at my course this past week, but it's like if you are going on two paths and today you're going like this and you start meditating and these paths start diverging, eventually like the gap is going to be immense of the
Mm-hmm.
impact of that type of action. And I think most people goal set, plan, try to change their lives in feelings of the highest level of motivation. But like motivation is not always there. Like don't rely upon motivation. You will fail. You will have bad days. You will be
Yep.
tired. You will absolutely fall off the table. But if you can reduce the goal to something that doesn't need a tremendous amount of motivation, that the step is super easy to get over, and that you're not trying to do 10 new things. I think it's so much better, easier, and getting better should feel good. I think that's
Yeah.
a thing that a lot of people mistake. Is like getting better is going to
Mm.
be hard, and it might be hard, but hard things can feel good too. And I think like you should figure out how to bring those two together. So that would be start small, figure out small little things, and boil them down to something that even when you're the most tired, the worst version of yourself, you can get through it. And if you miss, just don't miss 2 days in a row. We all miss. It's
Mm.
like, just don't miss another day. Who
Yep.
cares? You're only accountable to you and yourself.
I love it. Okay, well, thank you so much, Magnus, for coming on the show. And thank you, everyone, for listening. We're happy to talk to you today. Um, I think it should be a hell yes that you subscribe to Mindset Matters and comment your favorite moment from this episode. And with that, we will chat with you, or I will chat with you very soon. Bye.
Thanks, Vic.